You don't want to do this to an old building. Sometimes you don't want to do this to an old building. So you know what you do to avoid a load test? It's called, in lieu of a load test, I want to duplicate my connection. So you don't open this up. You don't take the bricks out. You don't do any of this, but somewhere here, I make a connection clip 4 to 6 inches away. I put a new epoxy bolt into the building and let sleeping dogs lie. To do this, it cost me $500 to put a bolt over here, an epoxy bolt by Hilti, or put a new 3/4 through bolt through the building with a plate on the inside, so I duplicate this unknown connection. So $500 versus $50, what do you think is better for the client? And better for you? So if it's a piece of crap behind here, who cares, because my new connection will eliminate that concern, and now I don't have to load test it. Because every time you give me other evidence of strength, there is no load testing. So I got a 5-story fire escape, and I only fixed one flight. Guess which flight I don't have to load test? That flight that got all the new bolts. That's called other evidence of strength. So does it make sense for the owner to load test this every 5 years with $8,000, $12,000, $15,000? Or should he invest money in bolts and paint? And put off load testing for 15 to 25 years. So that's what it's all about. This is the part you don't know. The part of the fire escape, 97% of the fire escape outside, you see all the bolts. You see all the steel. You see the corrosion and the connections. Just change all the fasteners. Now if I change all the fasteners, and a fastener gives out 3 years from now, and somebody gets hurt or dies, who do we sue? The bolt manufacturer. Because what failed? Was it the installation of the bolts?
Maybe.
Or was it the bolt if we can prove that the bolt gave, everybody sues the bolt manufacturer. That's why when you change all the fasteners, there is no need for a load test. Because you changed all the fasteners. So if you change fasteners on an entire structure every 25 to 35 years, you put off load testing for 15 to 25. Got it? Because the owner's got new bolts and new connections into the building. Verifiable. So if I change every bolt on 808 Travis, and I reconnect it into the building, and I don't open it up, but I give you a brand new epoxy bolt, 6 inches away, and I mechanically fasten it back with a bolt, back to the main supports. Do we want me to still load test 808 Travis?
Yes.
Why?
No need to.
Well, don't forget, the NFPA says it best. The authority having jurisdiction
Us?
shall accept by load test or other evidence of strength. There's an or there. It's like, shall only accept load. They didn't say, shall only accept load test. They said, the authority having jurisdiction shall accept by load test or other evidence of strength. So when you refurb it, there is no load test. When you only partially repair a building, guess what comes in?
The load test.
The load test. And then it's an integrated load test, because if I do a stair, I do all these bolts on this stairs, but none of these, which one do I have to load test? The new bolts or the one that the original bolts is still there?
Original. I got a question.
Right.
So when you load test, you're saying, if I got this right, you gotta tear out the wall and observe?
No. A load test, if this is a typical platform right here, this is about 2 feet by 8 feet. So 2 times 8 is 16. 16 square feet times 100 pounds. I gotta put 1,600 pounds of sandbags. And I'll show you a load test in a little bit. I gotta put 1,600 pounds of sand or water or plates on this thing for an hour. Take measurements before, during, and after, but I'll show you. It's not a mystery. I don't want a load test.
Why not?
1,600 pounds.
More work.
Oh yeah, and dangerous, right? But if all of a sudden, if the client refurbished it in its entirety, why do I want to load test it? It's like that, rebuilt the motor. Oh, we gotta test this motor. We rebuilt the motor. You know what I'm saying? And you guys have load testing on your ladders. You guys do load testing on all your ladders. A ladder gets, hits a tree by mistake. Oh, take it down, out of service, you gotta load test the ladders now. It's the same concept. See, it's not what you see, it's what you don't see. That's what load testing is for. But if all of a sudden you negate this concern by duplicating the connection, what do you care? Do you want to open up a wall? I don't want to open up this wall. Well, it could be bad, could be. But the new 3/4 through bolt that I put in there, Hilti epoxy or a whole new through bolt with a backing plate inside the wall, I see that one. I don't care about don't touch this building. The building's 100 years old. You're touching bricks that you can't replace anymore. This is what a through bolt looks like inside some of these old buildings. Got it? Now this is when somebody says, I gotta verify a connection. Look at this. Look at this hammer drill. Look at the hole. Look at the steel, and I have to drill 3 or 4 times over here so I can see the steel all solid all the way into the building. You know how much that costs? But if I take this and I put a hole over here 4, 6, 8 inches away, and I put a mechanical connection and a clip back to this steel, I keep the original one the way it is intact, so it still gets fixed and sealed. But my new 4 to 6 inches away clip with a new Hilti 3/4 threaded rod epoxied into the building, into the masonry block wall, or all the way through with a plate on the inside. Do you care about this original anymore? And look what I see when I go in. This is fire escape proctology. What do I see? What do I see in there? I can't see. That's me looking down. That's fire escape proctology right there. You don't see much. So I'd rather give you a new Hilti, and instead of playing with it for 500 bucks, I bought a Hilti bolt for 50 bucks. And which one is better for you? 100% attachment or 200% attachment? So if I give you an epoxy bolt, can I avoid the load test at 808 Travis?
Yes.
Right? Well, who keeps saying no? So I'm asking you because I'm going to be submitting to you that if they do a spot repair, there's a load test coming. And if they've got a full refurb, including reattaching back into the building, the originals all get recocked and still sealed, everything, 100% of all internal rust is going to be removed, right? So if they do a spot repair, there's an integrated load test that's going to be required. If they do a full refurb, including reattaching it back to the building, that thing goes up. From the parking lot, it goes up 10, 15 stories, then there's another 5-story on the mid-level, and then there's a one at the very top that goes up to the cupola. 29 stories tall, right? So if a spot repair needs a load test, or integrated load test, full refurb, no load test, right? Somebody else said no, they want a load test. Anybody clear? The code is making it easier for the owners not to be load testing every 5 years. You understand? The intent is not to force load testing on them. The intent is to say, keep refurbishing your fire escape every 15 to 25 years. Actually, the change of a building is in conjunction with the same structure here. So a lot of these buildings go through a full refurb electrically, plumbing-wise, window-wise, heat-wise, and roof-wise every 25 to 35 years. They kind of gut everything out and start with some fresh stuff, don't they? Do you think they did that to the fire escape? So that's all we're saying. So every time you gut a building, go outside to the fire escape, do the same thing, change all the bolts. Reconnect the fasteners or verify the fasteners back into the building. See the one? This is a fire escape that we pulled off a school for kindergarten to 8th grade. And so what I did is I took this fire escape, and usually when I'm doing any one of these seminars, I actually bring Rusty with me. And this is a piece of a fire escape that I bring that we basically saved off a fire escape, and I have a very small piece. And what I did is I basically did everything wrong to it. So, do you guys know why you can't weld fire escapes today? And yesterday. You know why you couldn't weld fire escapes yesterday? Because it had rust inside, and when you weld rust in its position and rust keeps growing, what's it do to the weld? It snaps it. So when you weld a rusty connection in 1 to 3 years, it'll snap that weld. If you want to do if you still want to do the wrong job, the best thing you can ever do to a connection that has rust inside is change the bolt. Because instead of welding it, you just change the bolt, and it's got a 1/4 inch of rust in there, and that rust grows a 1/16 or another 1/8. Guess what it does to the bolt? It stretches it. For how long before it snaps? 5, 10, 15 years, it'll scream. Well snapped bolts stretch, okay? So what I did is I did everything wrong. I grabbed this piece and I started fixing it wrong. I started welding. Today, why can't you weld a fire escape? First of all, it starts a fire. Nobody pulls fire permits, ever, right? And the EPA said that anything with lead on it, what can't you do? Can't put a flame on it. Otherwise, we'll give you a $37,500 fine. So if somebody shows up with a welding machine on a fire escape and starts welding the hell out of anything older than 1978, and the EPA is anywhere nearby, what's the fine? $37,500 per incident. Got it? Do you guys get to see any of that money? No. That's why they only have 4, to my knowledge. They only have 4 inspectors in the whole nation. But we have to register with them, pay them $300. So you know how much money they made by making everybody go through these EPA renovator classes? They made billions. So I did this wrong to show you what everybody else does. Got it? So I don't fix that, just weld it. You know, leave the rust in there, weld it. See all the rust in there, just weld it. If you can't weld it from underneath, put a bar on top or put a clip on top and just tack weld it. Get a fire permit? Get an extinguisher? Nothing burns down. Nothing burns these days. See, this is what you want to have. This is what happens. So there's the original hardware. They just weld it. No, pro permit? So building inspector doesn't know I'm there. Fire department doesn't know I'm there. In the case of fire happens, like they did in Boston, what do? And you catch a shed on fire in 2014. You guys may remember 2014 in the city of Boston. Guys welding a fire escape. Caught the shed on fire. 60 mile an hour winds that day. That shed took off. The 2 guys welding took off. Fire escape blows through the 5-story, the neighbor's 5-story apartment complex, which is all row housing. And as the firemen are evacuating everybody, 60 mile an hour winds, the firemen in the front, when they blew out the glass in the front, killed 2 firemen in the basement, knocking on doors saying, "Get out." That just happened in 2014 from a fire. And I think I have a clip of it here, it may show up. So that's what we made. So, and this was out of school. You know who made me change this out? Was it the yearly fire inspections? Was it the yearly building inspections on a school with kindergarten through 8th grade? And this fire escape, every day the little kids went into the recess yard through this. And all full of lead paint, and all the lead paint is gone because kids like sweet tasting lead paint. They run their hand, wipe their mouth, right? It was the facilities guy. Called me during Christmas, says, "Dude, come get this thing out of here and give me a new fire escape right away." So we had only a 7 to 11 day break for us to get this one out and put this, but I kept it. Buried in the ground, in the asphalt. And I said, what a great piece. Let me just freeze it, but it was 4 feet wide. I shrunk it so I could carry it around, and I bring this piece with me everywhere. So that's what it was. That's what we put back. 2011. Talked about OSHA, talked about EPA.
Acknowledging that lax enforcement by the city could have contributed to the Back Bay fire that killed the lives of 2 firefighters. One was working next door, may have been working on building's fire escape when they sparked the deadly fire. Fox Undercover revealed Wednesday that fire escape hadn't been inspected in 10 years, even though inspections are required every 5 years. Investigative reporter Mike Bodett made up some new exclusive information tonight. Mike?
We looked at the entire Beacon Street block where the fatal fire happened and discovered, just like 296 Beacon Street, most of the fire escapes there are overdue for inspections. It turns out the city doesn't have any mechanism in place to track building owners violating the rules and hold them accountable. Mayor Walsh is not happy.
Are you concerned that inspection wasn't done since 2004?
Of course I am, and it's something that, constantly every day seems like something new is coming up around inspection services, and we are looking at revamping a lot of the procedures in there.
Boston Mayor Marty Walsh talking about 296 Beacon Street, a place where welders may have been working on the fire escape when they sparked the inferno at 298 Beacon Street, a fire that killed Boston Fire Lieutenant Ed Walsh and firefighter Michael Kennedy. Records reveal that fire escape had not been inspected since 2004, even though state building code requires inspections every 5 years. So the fire escape should have been inspected in 2009 and then again this year, which raises a troubling question according to fire code expert Amy Cronin, president of Strategic Code Solutions.
We have to question if it had been done in 2009, perhaps there may have been some damage there. Like if you think about rust, if you catch it early enough before there's massive damage and there needs to be reconstruction, maybe the welding would have never been done.
Two of our heroes lost their life in that fire. And I'm not sure if that was the cause, but regardless whether that was the cause or not, we still should have inspected that property.
It turns out many inspections are not being done. Fox Undercover looked at fire escape inspection records for the entire Beacon Street block where the deadly fire happened. 2/3 of those fire escapes are overdue to be inspected. 1/3 of the fire escapes on the block haven't been inspected in 10 or more years. It's the responsibility of property owners to get the inspections done, but there's no evidence of the city cracking down on owners breaking the rules.
Shouldn't the city know if an inspection hasn't been done in all those years?
Absolutely, it should. And there should be a report generated that's able to find out what properties haven't been inspected. So if that's one of the properties that haven't been inspected on Beacon Street, can you just imagine the other properties in the city of Boston? That concerns me.
Back to 296 Beacon Street, where the welders who sparked the fire were working. We told you the last inspection on the fire escape was done in 2004. As we reported Wednesday, that inspection was done by Giuseppe Falcone, who owned D&J Ironworks in Malden. Falcone is being sued by the owner of the building that burned down, but he denies having anything to do with the welding that day. No comment from the owner of 296 Beacon Street, which did not have the fire escape inspected for a decade. I'm Mike Bodette for Fox Undercover.
The only thing I can say about this is, thank you, Captain Obvious, right? You know when they give you answers to everything, it's always what you should have done and what we need to do and what has to happen. Okay, we're in 2014 when they died. We're in 2016. 2003, Hank Phillippe Ryan did the piece that says Boston's not doing, and they said, oh no, we're gonna do something about it in 2003. 2004, the guy did his inspection. 10 years later, nobody's doing anything, and firemen are dying. So a lot of times, some of this information, and after this happened, I provided my services to them. How many calls did I get? Because as soon as it goes away, you know what I'm saying? Let's just bury them, and so this will happen. You guys have some hand grenades and you guys have some landmines in your buildings right now. That, again, in 2011, when I was doing classes here, and I walked to downtown and I looked, there was some dangling treads and stuff, so just be aware. You can either, the only reason why there's not more activities happening is because there's not as many fires, you know what I'm saying, happening. But if there was just fire after fire after fire, it's only a matter of time when one of these fire escapes will actually take a fire situation, which is simple, and turn it into a tragedy, and then all of a sudden, people from a different floor are going to come down and stop pointing fingers. Because look what happened on this news report. You know, the mayor saying, oh, that Spectral Services, we don't like what's going on out there. Of course you're supposed to have some, you know, because he doesn't run that department. He doesn't know what budget cuts are. He doesn't know this, he doesn't know that. And so this is just one of the things that I like is, you know, we call it Captain Obvious, and that's what happened in Philadelphia. When the councilmen started doing that, and they haven't called me till this day, again, Captain Obvious. They'll tell you everything we should do, that we should have done, and that we may try to do if I get around to it. That's Captain Obvious. Okay? So you guys got to understand that it doesn't happen overnight. So I'm not here to tell you that tomorrow there's going to be a program tomorrow. Get ready for a 3 to 5 year program. You need to make one of you the rusty fire escape captain. Might be you because, you know, he's got the 808s. You know, you get the king. I'll tell you, that's the tallest fire escape I've ever had to play with. There's one in Oklahoma, I think, 34 stories tall. But
we don't. I think I've got close to 125 buildings, and I've only had 2 that I've found on. That's it.
if I walk you down, I'll stop at 50.
Well, no, mine are all commercial buildings.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay, yeah. In the downtown, I mean, everything, I look at everything from mid-rise, low-rise, and high-rise.
Yeah, I'm doing strictly high-rise.
Yeah, over 75 feet, right?
Right.
Right, okay. But there's a ton of fire escapes on 75 and below,
Yeah.
tons. Tucked in little nookies and crannies, I mean, I found them all over. Is there a mid-rise people here?
Good question.
Isn't that a different department now?
No,
Still got it?
it's not being done.
All right, so guys, this is a great one. The OSHA code, you gotta love it. This is gonna give you some power because let me tell you what OSHA says you can't do. Can you work in a building that doesn't have 2 means of egress?
Not supposed to. You
Right.
shut it down.
They'll shut it down. So if all of a sudden somebody's really fighting your IFC, you're fighting your IBC, OSHA says all exit routes must be maintained during construction, repairs, and alteration. Isn't that what's happening in your downtown right now on a lot of these older buildings? So what's that mean for the fire escape? Do we want to stop economic growth? That's not what this is saying. This says you're supposed to provide, must not occupy a workplace. Employees must not occupy a workplace. So if you have electricians, plumbers, and inspectors, are you guys going to walk in this building that doesn't have a second means of egress? Are you guys an employee? Does OSHA allow? I know that some states, OSHA doesn't apply to the state employees, but you know what I'm saying? This means that people are not supposed to be working in there, but they say right here, very quick, they says that, or until alternate fire protection is furnished that provides an equivalent level of safety. You know what that means? Scaffolding. What that means is this. That's an equivalent mean. This building has a fire escape. So you put in scaffolding that feeds a window, that has stairs that are 3 feet, 3 feet wide, 7-Eleven rise and run all the way down. Not construction stairs, full egress stairs with a lockdown at the bottom and a crash bar and all this other stuff. And now what do you do with a fire escape? You mothball it. You can mothball the fire escape till the end of the project. I'm not telling you have to fix it. But when they stop pulling out their permits, what's the first thing that you should have as a permit process? Aside from an architect, an engineer of record, pay your fee, fill out the application, do you have 2 means of egress on this project? Otherwise, I can't let you have this. But to not stop the economic growth, fill out their application, give them their permit, say, I'll see you in 3 days, bring me the certificate on that fire escape. Otherwise, when I show up, I'm going to close it down unless you have scaffolding on the project. Then the project can continue for the lifetime. At the end, when they're all done with the building, they want the occupancy permit. What can't they get until they fix the fire escape? You can't do a smoke detector test, you can't do a final on that, because what's the final? So they're either going to fix the fire escape at the beginning, or they're going to fix the fire escape at the end, but in the meantime, to meet OSHA, what do they got to put up? Scaffolding. And this could be not a major high-rise, it could be a house, it could be a small factory, it could be a small, 2 or 3 story building. Just throw some scaffolding up there. Mothball your fire escape. Block all windows and doors to the fire escape and block it down below so that in case my firemen show up in the middle of the night, there's clear documentation, there's a board on it that says what? Right? Sign says don't use it. Right? Big circle with the slash. Load testing. We're going to talk about load testing right now. Time is it? Anybody have a time?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
10.
As soon as you guys, I'll give you guys a 5-minute break, so in case anybody wants to run and do something. Does anybody have any questions? Then we'll give you a 5-minute break. So far.
There's not a lot of people in the world that do what you do, is there?
There's actually, we're the only fire escape company in the nation, but there's plenty of people that do what I do that are ornamental iron workers, welding guys. They just need to have some sort of system. So that's what the National Fire Escape puts out these videos, they put out these websites so that basically in case somebody says, I don't know what to do, you said, dude.
Yeah, because I had to have my building research and find somebody like you, because.
Yeah. Well, it's the bastard child of egress.
Right.
Nobody was making any money on it because nobody was enforcing it.
Right.
And so it basically wasn't until 2012 when the IFC forced a 5-year rule that all of a sudden, now there's a new surgeons, now we got, and everybody's crying for, what do we do? Well, that's why we're going to fill out one of these confidence tests. You just have to understand that it's a perfect storm of stupidity. See, what I have is I have a master's degree in reverse stupidity. I've been doing this since '71, so I know all the wrong ways to do this job. I also know all the right ways. When you do it long enough, you're left with just the right way to do things. So I've documented that, put that in one place, and now give me 1 million fire escapes tomorrow. And as long as I can divorce my wife, never speak with my kids, yeah, I'll have one. But all this work is to basically, your economic engine is here already. You already have architects and engineers here. I'm going to go for my share of it, but there's already architects and engineers here. And if they don't know what to do, they just have to read this stupid little confidence test, and and believe me, they'll get back into it. If there's money, everybody will get back. Who's the guys that are going to fix these things? The guys who built them, which are ornamental iron workers and welding guys who are fabricators. Guess what? They're going to get back into this. So they already exist. Are we one of the few? Yeah. Are we ahead of the curve? Yeah. Are we teaching free classes? Yeah. Should they be teaching free classes? People don't give anything away for free. By the way, here's my coffee and the donut you promised me for this class.
Yeah, all about it, you're right.
Yeah, I told you, I don't work for free. I gotta take something. I keep the receipt in my pocket. But it can quickly get back. It's just nuts and bolts. All nuts and bolts technology. You gotta take out one bolt, put one bolt in. You can never, on a fire escape, you can never take out more than you can put back the same day. Because at night, I gotta leave that fire escape functional.
I got a question.
Yes.
So your engineers who aren't, you know, your hands-on type people, you even showed it earlier that they really don't know what they're doing. They're more, you know, putting something together on paper than it is compared to you where you actually know exactly what goes into it, right?
I have an expertise, so I'm called a fire escape engineer. So I'm a certified fire escape engineer. I'm not a registered fire escape engineer, because then I'd be registered as a structural engineer in your state. But I have registered structural engineers who are certified fire escape protection engineers through my group. So you're gonna be seeing, right now, you go to, for example, one of the guys that works for me, he's actually working for the Dallas Fire Department. He's a code review. He took the class at A&M, I think, or in past, and he's now a fire inspector for the city of Dallas. But he's also got trained by me to be a fire escape engineer. So this is, it's emerging, but yes, we're the experts, but the one thing I like to always tell people in regards to crash, you know,
Crash dummies.
not the dummies, but the thing that comes in when you crash your car, what do you call it?
Airbag.
Airbag. You know who invented airbags? Mercedes invented airbags. You know what patent they have on that? They don't. And they said, man, you could have made $1 million, because we could hold the patent for like 17 years. They said, you guys could have held the patent and only Mercedes cars could have the airbag. Because why don't you guys just let everybody copy the airbag? He goes, because it was the right thing to do. Because every car should have an airbag. So one of the reasons why we put up these sites, trust me, I'm competitive just like the next guy. But you know, when the share is this big, and even at my best capacity, I can only handle this much. Somebody else has got to do this other side. And in order for things to be done right, you need some training. You guys have training for fire, you guys have training for things. So to do it right, you just put out the training. So all we did was just start a school, National Fire Escape Association, to say, you can't plead ignorance anymore. That's why I showed you the Dallas website. Pretty soon I'll have a Houston website. It'll say Fire Escapes Houston. And it's the same exact website. And if anybody ever says, I don't know what to do, he said, then let me send you a link. Poke around there and you'll know what I know, and it's that simple. Now get this thing fixed, because it's either going to kill tenants, or it's going to kill firemen, or like I said, my jokes have bombed so far, ready? But you guys, this is another joke here, ready? There's a new city ordinance here in Houston where all rent checks must be collected by the landlords through the fire escape. Right? All you have to do is, you live in that building, you put your rent on the outside window and call your landlord, your check is here, come up to fire escape and get it. That'll fix every fire escape in town.
Nowadays, nobody wants their name on anything in writing. They always want to push the.
Well, that's why we have this
Whenever
conference.
you put them on notice, and then they don't do it, then they're liable, and they know they're liable for it.
Let me throw another one. Another one to copy, write this down on the back of the book, Regulation 4 LA. So there's lots of things you can go steal. So I already told you about Portland. Regulation 4 in LA, the LA Fire Department, go to Reg 4. And they have, the whole fire protection system is under a program. So not just me, sprinkler systems, alarms. You know how much you have to join that group? So that I'm registered with the LA, $1,000. Then I have to have a test, and I have to pass with an 80. Then I have to go out with you and go show you that I can do a fire escape inspection or a sprinkler inspection or whatever. And every 3 years they ask for 50% of my fee to stay there. And you may want to check out with LA, because they have all the forms and all the documents. So you don't have documents, go steal all their documents on alarms, on everything. They just have it all on the website. LAFD Reg 4 or LAFD.org, and then you just go to fire prevention and steal it's all online, okay? So, the point that I was trying to make with that, they're using a company called Brycer, okay? So if you're having a problem, one of the biggest problems that LA was having is that it had 100,000 buildings. So Brycer was invented by firemen. Basically, they come in and they handle all the documentation. So in order for me to now do a fire escape inspection in LA, I had to register with Brycer. I had to pay Brycer to process my report. LA doesn't pay a dime. So they implemented this program where all the vendors basically pay to submit reports back to you guys. But you guys get it all in a digital form because all the documentation to the owner, handled by Brycer. All the court dates, handled by Brycer. Because you guys just monitor on your computer, you know, and you know these violations that you wrote a year ago, it's the same violation now? Not anymore. Brycer will have that guy sitting in court with fines, fees, and you write. It's a free program. And if you look it up, I'll call LA and speak with them, say, hey, you guys did Brycer, and they're all over the country now. Brycer, B-R-Y-C-E-R. And they basically, they handle and they push the paper. So you no longer have paper, you have a dash on your computer and it tells you how many went out and how many got taken care of. And basically the report goes in, it can't be erased out, it has to go through its process of, and if the client just blows it off, Brycer sends them to court. Automatic court dates are set, blah, 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 fines and fees, blah, blah, blah. Go Brycer. So when we went to class on that, because they had to bring us in for a class on this at LA, when Brycer estimated that only 25% of all violations were being processed because of their staff, and by the time they got around 1 year later, it was the same violations on top of and they were able to only process 25%. Brycer assured LA that they were going to get that up to about 90%, if not 95%, per year. Because a lot of it is just automated paper bullshit. It just and the computer can do that all day long. So check it out, Brycer. And that's where they're at now. They're in the guinea pig stage with LA. So call LA and say, how's the when are you guys done with the guinea pig stage? Because we want the working model, you know. But they've helped companies that basically you got just information overload is what's popping your brains. You know what I'm saying? So you just monitor what has to come to you, and it's all done through Brycer. And we pay for it. And at any time you can just quit out of Brycer. So Brycer, you don't control the database. Brycer doesn't. You do. So in case Brycer's not stepping up to their you keep the database. So just check it out. You have one of the representatives call you. I don't work for Brycer, but I just thought it was the coolest thing because as a vendor, we're like, what do you mean we got to pay? He goes, dude, you're going to get 5-fold increase in work. I'm like, oh, okay, here's the $10. It's every report you put in, you have to pay $10 for processing. Meaning we pay Brycer. That's how they make their money. They process information.
But then you just pass it down to the consumer.
Right. We add $10 to the inspection. But the biggest thing about it is they took mundane, routine, repetitive stuff, and they made a computer do that, including sending the owner to court.
That's awesome.
Okay, so we'll take a 5. Everybody want to take a drink, hit the bathroom? And we'll start with load testing. Look at all these sandbags, all these bags.
See, I did that just through others did.
I don't know.
Don't forget, this is going to be a fireman 5. Okay? Fireman 5.
Fireman 5.
Not a building inspector 15. It's a fireman 5. In and out. In and out.
Hey, how was so how did the inspection go on that Travis